Hello, my name is Mayanka. I am accounts and finance trainer from Uplatz. Today we will cover the topic of refund. We will discuss the topic of refund. This is part 1 of refund. In this class we will discuss what is the refund, means introduction of such topic. We will discuss the introduction of such topic, and we will also discuss some important definitions and some important terms which are required to be understood before the discussion of such topic, so that you can properly understand the concept of refund. So that you can properly understand the concept of refund, because there are many terms which will be used in such concept. So before the understanding such concept, we will discuss all these terms. We will discuss all these terms. So it is easy to us to understand the concept of refund. We will cover the topic of refund in 5 classes. We will discuss such concept in 5 classes. This is our first part. Now we will start part 1 of refunds. Part 1 of refunds. Refund under the GST. Introduction. First, we will discuss the introduction of such concept. Introduction of refund. Timely refund mechanism is essential in the tax administration. The timely refund mechanism is a very essential. It is a very essential in the tax administration, as it facilitates trade through the release of block funds from the working capital, expansion, and modernization of existing business. Refund is a process. Refund is a process where the amount of the blocked working capital can be released. It can be released, or such released working capital can be utilized by the person for the expansion of business and for the modernization of existing business. So in this case, in the case of each and every tax mechanism, there should be a timely refund, timely refund mechanism. If there is the timely refund mechanism, then the taxpayer can take the refund of his blocked of his blocked working capital, and such amount of refund can be utilized by him for the purpose of expansion of business. He can use such amount of refund which is recovered for the purpose of expansion of business, for the purpose of increase the business activity, and he can also utilize for the modernization of existing business, for the modernization of existing business. The provisions pertaining to the refund contained in the GST law aim to streamline and standardize the refund process under the GST regime. Is that the provision relating to the refunds, the provision relating to the refund relating to the refund are contained in the GST law. Means the GST law contains the provisions relating to the refund. GST law contains the provision relating to the refund. The main objective and the main aim of the GST law, means the main objective of refund provision of GST law, to streamline and to standardize of refund process. Means they want that They want that there should be streamlined and standardized refund process under the GST. Under the GST, there should be a proper GST procedure. Under GST regime, there is a standardized form for making any claim of refund. Under the GST, there is a standardized form. There is a standardized form for making the any claim of any claim for refund. For making the any claim of refund. The claim and sanctioning procedure is primarily online and time bound. Under the GST, for claim and for sanctioning the procedure is primarily online. It is primarily online, and there is a time boundation, which is a marked departure from the earlier time consuming and cumbersome procedure. Further, the provision relating to the refunds are more transparent as compared to the provision which is contained in the earlier indirect tax law. Is that in the previous indirect tax regime, there are also the provision of refund. But under the GST law, but under the GST law, the provisions relating to the refunds are more transparent, are more simple, and are more good in compare as compared to the previous tax law procedure. Now the provisions relating to the refunds are more easy, are more transparent. So it is easy to understand the process of refund under the GST. Under the GST, Chapter 11 Refund. Chapter 11 Refund. Section 54 to 58 of CGST Act 2017 means Chapter 11 of CGST Act contain the provision relating to the refund. Section 54 to 58 are the provision which are relating to the refund. Chapter 10 Refund. Section Chapter 10 Refund. Rule 89 to 97A of CGST rule. Chapter 10 of CGST rule also contain the rules or also contain the provision relating to the refund. Rule number 89 to 97A. It is stipulate or contain the provision relating to the refund. State GST law also prescribe the identical provision. State GST laws, state CGSTs also CGST also contain the identical provision in the relation to the refund. Further, Section 15 of the IGST Act. Further, Section 15 of the IGST Act 2017 prescribe for the refund of integrated tax, which is paid on supply of goods to tourists living in India. Means Section 15 of IGST. Section 15 of the IGST Act contain the provision in the respect of refund of integrated tax, which is paid on the supply of goods, which is paid on the supply of goods to tourists who are leaving India, to the tourists who are leaving the India. So these are the chapters of CGST Act, CGST rules, IGST Act, and SGST Act, which contains the provisions relating to the refund. We will discuss all these chapters and we will discuss all these sections and rules so that we can properly understand the concept of refund. Because the discussion about these concepts is very much important to properly know about the concept and the provisions of refund. So now, so now we will discuss all these concepts We will discuss all these concepts. But before the discussion, all these concepts and all these provisions, first we will discuss some important and relevant definitions. First, we will discuss some important and the relevant definitions. Important and relevant definitions. Number one, refund. What is the meaning of refund? What is the meaning of refund? Refund includes refund of tax, which is paid on the zero rated supply of goods or services or both, or on input or input services which are used in making the zero rated supply, or refund of tax on the supply of goods regarded as deemed export, or refund of unutilized input tax credit as provided under section 54 subsection 3. Is that the refund of refund includes refund of number one, the tax which is paid on the zero rated supply of goods, supply of services or both. Is that the amount of tax which is paid by the taxpayer on the zero rated on the zero rated supply of goods, supply of service or both. Then the refund of such a tax will be considered as refund, or refund of on input and the input services which are used in making such zero rated supply, means refund of the tax which is paid on the inputs or on the input services which are used for making the zero rated supply, or refund of the tax which is paid on the supply of goods, refund of the tax which is paid on supply of goods regarded as deemed export, which is considered as deemed exports, or refund of unutilized input tax credit, the refund of unutilized input tax credit as provided under section 54 subsection 3. Refund of unutilized. If you have any unutilized input tax credit, then the refund of such unutilized ITC will also be included as refund. So this is the definition of refund. Refund include all these refunds. Number two, what is the meaning of tourist? What is the meaning of tourist? Tourist means a person not normally resident of India. Tourist means the person who is not normally resident in India. He is not the resident of India who enters India for a stay of not more than 6 months. Means the person who comes or who entered into India for the purpose of stay. But his stay period shall not be more than 6 months. Not more than 6 months for legitimate non-immigrant purpose. Means the tourist is a person who enters into India for the period which shall not be more than 6 months for legitimate non-immigrant purpose. Normally, the tourist is a person who is not the resident of India. He is the resident of any other country. He is not the resident of India, and who and such person stay in India for the period which is less than 180 days or which is less than 6 months. So this is the definition of tourist. Zero rated supply. What is the meaning of zero rated supply? The zero rated supply, the zero rated supply shall have the meaning assigned to it in section 16 of IGST Act. Zero rated supply shall have the meaning which is assigned to it in section 16, section 2, subsection 23 of the IGST Act. The zero rated supply. The zero rated supply is a supply which has the meaning and its meaning is assigned to in section 16. As per section 16 subsection 1, as per section 16 subsection 1 of IGST Act, zero rated supply means, the zero rated supply means any of the following: supply of goods, supply of services, or both. Zero rated supply means, zero rated supply means any of the following: supply of goods, supply of services, or supply of both. Any of supply of goods, supply of service, or both. Namely, number one, export of goods, export of services, or both. Is that when there is the export of goods, there is the export of services, or both. There is the export of goods, there is the export of services, or there is the export of both. It will be considered as zero rated supply. It will be considered as zero rated supply. Number two, supply of goods or supply of service or both to the special economic zone developer. Supply of goods, supply of services, or supply of both to the special economic zone developer, to the special economic zone developer, or to a special economic zone unit, means any supply of goods, supply of services, or both, which are made to the special economic zone developer or special economic zone unit, then it will be considered as zero rated supply. It will be considered as zero rated supply. Is that if there is any export of goods, export of services, or both, export of goods, export of services, or both, then it will be considered as zero rated supply. When there is any supply of goods, supply of services, or supply of both, which is made to SEZ developer and SEZ units, then it will also be known as, then it will also be known as zero rated supply. Then it will be known as zero rated supply. So this is the definition of zero rated supply. This is the definition of zero rated supply. Now we will discuss the recipient of goods or services. What is the meaning of recipient? Who is to be known as or who is to be considered as recipient of goods or recipient of service? Recipient of supply of goods, supply of service, or both means the recipient of supply of goods, supply of service, or both means number one, where a consideration is payable for the supply of goods or supply of service, where the consideration is required to be paid. Consideration is required to be paid for the supply of goods, for the supply of service, or both. Then the person who is liable to make the payment of such consideration, means the person who will make the payment, the person who will make the payment of such consideration will be considered as recipient of goods, recipient of service, or both. For the example, Mr. A purchased some goods from Mr. B. Mr. A purchased some goods from Mr. B. Mr. A will make the consideration to Mr. B in the respect of such goods which is purchased by him. So Mr. A is the person who is the liable to make the payment. So Mr. A is a person who is liable to make the payment of consideration. So in this case, Mr. A will be considered as a recipient. Mr. A will be considered as a recipient. In the case when there is a requirement to make the payment of consideration, then the person who is required, to make the payment of such consideration will be considered as recipient. Number two, where no consideration is payable means where no need to pay the amount of consideration means any goods, there is a supply of goods, and in the respect of such supply of goods no payment is required to be made. Where no consideration is payable for the supply of goods, the person to whom goods are delivered, the person to whom goods are delivered or made available, the person to whom goods are delivered or goods are made available, or to the person to whom the possession or use of goods is given or made available, then such person will be considered as recipient. Then such person will be considered as recipient. For the example, Mr. Ram and Mr. Shyam, they both are good friends. Mr. Ram and Mr. Shyam, they are the good friends. Mr. Ram, Mr. Ram has a machine. Mr. Ram has a machine which is used by him for the purpose of some household work, some housework. Mr. Shyam want this machine from Mr. Ram. Mr. Shyam wants this machine from Mr. Ram for the some days for the purpose of use only. Means he also want to use this machine in his house for the certain time period. Mr. Ram provides his machine to Mr. Shyam that he can use such machine. He can use such machine for the certain period. Means he can use it. And in the respect of this, he will not charge any amount. Means he will not take any payment from Mr. Shah. So in this case, there is the supply of goods. Means such goods can be used by him. There is the use of goods. Means Mr. Sham will use his goods. He will supply his goods to Mr. Sham that he can use it for any time of period or for the specific time of period. But he will not charge any amount of consideration. In the respect of such a supply of goods. So in this case, the Shyam who will receive the delivery, of goods, or the goods are available. Such a machine is available to him. That he can use it. Then in this case, Mr. Shyam will be considered as a recipient. He will be considered as a recipient. Number three, where no consideration is payable for the supply of service. Where no consideration is payable for the supply of service means there is a supply of service which is made by the one person to the another person, and the supplier doesn't charge the amount of any consideration for such supply. In this case, the person to whom supply is made or service is rendered is to be known as recipient. The person to whom service is rendered is to be known as recipient. For the example, Mr. Ram and Mr. Shyam, they are the very good friends. Has a Mr. Ram has a boy's part, means he is a beauty artist. He is a beauty artist. He provide the service of he provide the service of hair cutting and makeup to the boys. Mr. Sham wants a hairstyle. He wants a hairstyle. He went he went to the shop of Mr. Ram and he takes a hairstyle from Mr. Ram. Mr. Ram, Mr. Ram he will not charge any amount from Mr. Shyam because they are the good friends. So he will not charge any amount for the service. So in this case, there is the supply of service without any consideration. So in this case, the Mr. Ram provide the service to Mr. Shyam. So in this case, the service to whom it is rendered means the receiver is Mr. Shah, to whom the services are rendered by Mr. Ram to Mr. Shah. So, in this case, Mr. Sham will be considered as recipient of services. He will be considered as recipient of service. Number 4, and any reference to the person to whom the supply is made shall be construed as a reference to the recipient of supply, and it shall also include a agent who is acting on the behalf of recipient in the relation to the goods, service, or both. Is that is that when there is any person who refer to any other person, that you can give the supply or you can provide such goods or provide such services to such a person on the behalf of me. On the behalf of me, for the example, Mr. Ram, he is the he is the supplier of electronic goods. He has supplied some electronic goods. He ordered some electronic item to Mohan, and he requests Mohan that supply such goods to Mr. Shah on the behalf of me. Means he referred to Mr. Shah that he told to Mohan that you should and can you transfer or can you available and provide such goods or supply such goods to Mr. Shyam on the behalf of me. So in this case, Mr. Shyam, who will receive the goods on the behalf of Mr. Ram, will also be considered as a recipient. He will also be considered as recipient. It is also include agent. If there is any agent who is receiving the goods or receiving the services or both on the behalf of his agent, on the behalf of his principal, then such agent will also be known as such agent will also be known as recipient. Such agent will also be known as recipient. So this is the definition of recipient: the recipient of goods, the recipient of supply, the recipient of goods, the recipient of service, and both. This is the definition of recipient. Now we will discuss. Now we will discuss the main concept or the main provision of such concept. Now we will discuss the main provision or main concept of such topic. Refund of tax, section 54 of CGST Act. Section 54 of CGST Act. Refund of tax. Refund of tax under GST. Now we will discuss the situation leading to refund claim. Now we will discuss the situation in which the refund claim is available. Is that we can make the claim for the refund situation. What are the situations? A claim for refund may arise of following situation. Means we can make the claim of the claim for the refund in the following situation. In the following situation, we can make the claim of refund. We can make the claim of the refund. Number one, export oblique supply to SEZ developer, SEZ unit on the payment of CGST. Number one, when there is the export, when there is the export or supply to SEZ developer, to SEZ units, to SEZ developer and SEZ unit on the payment of IGST, on the payment of IGST. In case where goods and or services are exported, in case when the goods and services or both are exported, or goods, services or both are supplied to the SEZ units or to the SEZ developer on the payment of IGST. When there is any export of goods, services or both, or when there is any supply of any goods, services or both to the SEZ developer, to the SEZ developer or to the SEZ unit on the payment of IGST, by the payment of IGST, means at the time of supply the amount of IGST is paid. Subject to such condition, safeguards and procedure as may be prescribed, subject to the certain condition, subject to the certain safeguards and procedure as may be prescribed. Refund of such ITC which is paid on the goods, which the refund of the ITC which is paid on the goods, services or both, which is supplied is available. Is that the refund of IGST, the refund of IGST, which is paid by the taxpayer on the goods or on the services which are supplied, will be available. Means the person, means the exporter or the supplier to SEZ unit or SEZ developer, he can take the he can take the refund, he can take the refund of all the amount of IGST. For the example, Mr. X exports some goods to Mr. John in UK. Mr. X exports some goods to John and he pay the amount of IGST. He pay the amount of IGST. There are some different provisions in the respect of export. We will also discuss, but for the purpose of example, Mr. Ram pay the amount of IGST in the respect of such export of goods. So, in this case, Mr. Ram is eligible to take the refund. He is eligible to take the refund of such amount of IGST which is paid by him at the time of export. At the time of export, at the time of export, the amount of IGST which is paid by him will be eligible for the refund. Means he can take the refund. He can take the refund of the such amount of IGST. He can take the refund of the amount of IGST which is a payable, sorry, which is paid by him in the case of export of goods. So, if there is any export, if there is any export supply to SEZ, supply of any goods, supply of any services or both to SEZ or to SEZ unit or to SEZ developer, So in this case, the exporter or the supplier can take the refund of IGST. He can take the refund of IGST. He can take the refund of IGST. Number two, refund of unutilized ITC. Refund of unutilized ITC means the taxpayer or the registered person can take the refund of unutilized ITC. He can take the refund of unutilized ITC. Refund of unutilized ITC. In case of export, in case of export and supply to SEZ developer, in case when there is the export, supply to SEZ developer, SEZ unit without the payment of without the payment of IGST. When there is any export of goods, export of supply or export of both, and there is the supply to SEZ units and SEZ developers without the payment of IGST, or in case of inverted inverted duty structure, refund of unused ITC is available. In such case, the amount of unutilized ITC is available by the refund. Means there is the refund of unutilized amount of ITC. In case there is the export or supply to SEZ unit and the SEZ developer which is made by the person without the payment of IGST. Without the payment of IGST, or in the case of inverted duty structure, then the refund of unutilized ITC, the refund of unutilized input tax credit is applicable. Number three, refund of tax which is paid on the supply of goods regarded as deemed export may be claimed. Third point is refund of tax which is paid. The amount of refund which is paid on supply of goods regarded as deemed export may be claimed. If there is any supply of goods and such supply of goods is considered as it is considered as deemed export, it is considered as deemed export, then then the refund then the refund of the tax is available. Then the refund of such tax is available. Refund of tax paid on the supply of goods regarded as deemed export may be claimed. Regarded as deemed exports may be claimed. Number 4, refund of any balance in the electronic cash ledger. Refund of any balance in the electronic cash ledger after payment of tax, interest, penalty, fees, or any other amount which is payable under this act or rule made thereunder may be claimed. Refund of any balance. Refund of any balance in electronic cash ledger. Refund of any balance. Refund of any balance in electronic cash ledger account after the payment of tax, interest and penalty. After the payment of tax, interest and penalty, or any other amount which is payable under this act or rule made thereunder may be claimed. For the example, there is a balance in the electronic cash ledger account is 10,000 after the payment of tax, interest, penalty, fees, and other dues. Then, in such case, the person or the registered person can take the refund of such amount. If he want to take the refund of such amount, then he can he can claim the refund of such unutilized amount. of of electronic cash. Number 5, refund on the account of tax. Refund on the account of tax which is paid on a supply which is not provided. Refund on account of tax. Refund on account of tax which is paid on the supply. Refund on the account of tax which is paid on the supply which is not provided either wholly or partially, and for which invoice has been has not been issued. Refund on the account of tax which is paid on the supply. Refund on the account of tax which is paid on supply which is not provided, either wholly or partially, and for which invoice has not been issued. Means there is the payment of tax in advance. There is the payment of tax in advance. Means payment is made but no supply is made. Payment is made but in the respect of such tax no supply is made. So in this case the taxpayer can also make the claim of such refund. Means he can claim such amount. He can claim the refund of such amount. Number 6, refund of tax wrongly collected and paid to the government. Refund of tax. Refund of the tax which is wrongly collected and paid to the government. Means the amount of refund is wrongly collected is that the amount of the tax is collected by the person but it is in wrong head, and such a wrongly collected tax is paid to the government, to the taxpayer. Is that CGST and the SGST paid by treating the supply as intrastate, which is subsequently had as interstate supply or vice versa. Is that the supply is made by the person, he considered it he considers the supply as intrastate supply and he charged CGST and SGST. But after some time, it was found that it is not a intrastate supply. It is not a intrastate supply. It is an interstate supply. And the IGST is required to be charged. Or vice versa means he has charged IGST as interstate supply, but after some time it was found that it was a interstate supply, and CGST and SGST are required to be deducted. Is required to be charged. So in this case, there is a wrongly collection of tax. There is a wrongly collection of tax and payment of such tax to the government. In such case, such a taxpayer or such taxable person can claim the refund of tax which is wrongly collected and paid to the government. In such case, the taxpayer has the power or he can make the claim in the respect of such tax which is wrongly collected and which is paid to the government. Number 7, refund of IGST which is paid by the tourist leaving India on any supply of goods taken out of India by him. Refund of IGST. The refund of IGST which is paid by the tourist. Refund of IGST which is paid by the tourist who is leaving the India on any supply of goods, on any supply of goods taken out of India by him. Means there is a tourist who visited who who comes to visit in India and to stay in India for the period less than 180 days or less than 6 months. He purchased some material or he purchased some goods from India, and the amount of IGST is paid by such a tourist person. He is leaving the India on any supply of goods which is taken out by him of India. So in this case, the amount of IGST which is paid by him goods on the goods, it will be refundable. It will be refundable. So such person can make the claim. So such a taxpayer or such person can make the claim of refund of IGST, which is paid by the tourist, which is paid by the tourist who is leaving India on any supply of goods which is taken out of India by him. 8 point, tax become refundable. Tax become refundable as tax become refundable as a consequence of judgment, as a consequence of judgment, decree, order, or direction of the appellant tribunal, or any court. Tax become refundable as a consequences of judgment, decree, order, or direction of the appellant tribunal and appellant authority or any court. Then such tax become refundable. Such tax become refundable. Number 9. On the finalization of provisional assessment, on the finalization of provisional assessment, if any tax become refundable to the taxpayer, on the finalization of provisional assessment, it is found that the amount of tax is refundable to the taxpayer. Then the taxpayer can make the claim of such refund. In the case of a provisional assessment, the amount is the estimated amount of tax is deposited by the taxpayer. And after the finalization of such provisional assessment, it was found that there is some amount. It was found that the amount of the final tax, means the amount of tax which is determined on the basis of final assessment, is less than the amount which is deposited by the taxpayer. Then then such amount such excess amount can be claimed. Then the excess amount is to be claimed by such taxpayer person, is that he can make the claim for the such refund. He can make the claim he can make the claim of such refund. He can make the refund of such claim. So this is the 9 point of refund. 10th, refund of taxes on purchase which is made by you and bodies or embassies. Refund of taxes on purchase where such purchase is made by you and bodies and the embassies. When there is any purchase which is made by the embassies or which is made by the UN body, then such tax will be refunded. 11th point, refund of taxes to the retail outlets which is established in the departure area of international airport. Refund of taxes to the retail outlets which are established in the departure area of international airport beyond integration counters, making tax-free supply to an outgoing international tourist. Refund of taxes. There is the refund of tax to the to the retail outlet. The retail outlets which are established in the departure area of international airport, beyond immigration counter, making tax-free supply to an outgoing international tourist. Number 12. Refund of advance tax. The refund of the advance tax which is deposited by the casual taxpayer person or non-resident taxable person. The refund of advance tax. Because in the case of casual taxpayer person or the non-resident taxable person, when they want to supply any goods, services or both in India, then at the time of registration, there is a requirement to make the payment of advance tax. They will estimate they will estimate the amount of advance tax which will be payable by them in the case of supply of services, supply of goods or both. They will they will make the advance payment of such tax. Before the payment of such advance tax, they are not eligible for the registration. Means when the advance payment of tax is made by them, then the registration under the GST will be available to them. So in this case, they can claim the refund of such advance tax. They can claim the refund of such advance tax which is paid by him at the time of registration. Section 13. Section number 13. Number 13 is a refund of excess payment of tax. Refund of excess payment of tax. If there is any person who is required to make the payment of rupees 10,000, but wrongly he has made the payment of rupees 12,000, then such 2,000 rupees such 2,000 rupees is refundable. Means make he can make he can take the refund he can take the refund of such advance payment or such excess payment. He can make the refund of such excess payment. So these all are the conditions in which these all are the conditions in which the person can claim for the refund. These all are the conditions in which the person can make the claim for the refund. He can file the refund application for the refund of such amount. He can file an application for the refund claim. So now there is the another topic. There is the another topic, how to file an application for refund claim. There are 13 situations. There are 13 situations in which we can make a claim refund for a refund or we can make an application for the refund. So now we will discuss how we file an application for the refund claim. How we file an application for the refund claim. Number 1. Application form for claiming the refund. Application form for claiming the refund. Any person claiming refund of any tax, interest, penalty, fees, or any other amount which is paid by him may file an application in form GST RFD GST RFD 01 electronically through the GST common portal. Any person who wants any person who wants to take the claim any person who wants to take the claim of refund of any tax, of any interest, of any penalty, fees, or any other amount which is paid by him. or any other amount which is paid by him, then he may, for the purpose of claiming the refund, he may file an application. Such person who wants to take the who wants to take the or claim the refund of any amount, then he may file an application in file an application for such refund in the form GST RFD GST RFD 01, and such application is filed electronically, and such application is filed electronically through the GST common portal. Means through the GST common portal, the application is filed by the person for claiming the refund. For claiming the refund. In case of refund of IGST, which is paid on goods exported out of India. However, in case of refund, however, in the case of refund of IGST, which is paid on goods which is exported out of India, there is no need of filing a separate refund claim in refund application form GST RFD 01, since the shipping bill which is filed by the exporter is itself treated as refund claim. Is that when there is any export is made by the person out of India, there is any export of goods, export of service, or both, and in the case of such export, the IGST is paid by such person, and such person wants to file a claim for the refund of such IGST which is paid by him on the goods, which are exported out of India, which is paid by him on the exported of goods, the goods which are exported out of India. So in this case, there is no need. So in this case, there is no need for filing a separate refund claim. So in this case, there is to no need for filing a separate refund claim in refund application form GST RFD 01, since the shipping bill filed by the exporter is itself treated as a refund claim. Is that the shipping bill which is filed by the exporter will be considered as, or it is sufficient for making the refund application. Is that in the case of exported of goods, there is no need to file a separate application for the refund. Is that he will not make an application by the form GST RFD 01 for claiming the refund under the GST in the respect of export of goods. The shipping bill which is filed by the exporter, will be considered as, or will be treated as, refund claim. It will be considered as the supporting for the refund claim. Means it will be considered as that it is the application for refund claim. No need to file another form for claiming any refund. Shipping bill filed by an exporter shall be deemed to be an application for refund of integrated tax which is paid on the goods exported out of India. Shipping bill is filed by the exporter, and it shall be deemed to be an application, and it shall be deemed to be an application for the refund of integrated tax which is paid on the goods which are exported out of India. Thus, shipping bill is sufficient for claiming the for claiming the refund of IGST. The IGST which is paid by the person, which is paid by the person on the goods which are exported out of India. There is no need to file. There is no need to file a separate refund application for making the refund of such tax. No need to file another separate application. Shipping will sufficient for considering the claim of refund. Further, a registered person claiming refund of any balance. Further, there is a registered person who is claiming the refund, who is claiming the refund of any balance. A registered person claiming the refund of any balance in the electronic cash ledger in accordance with the provision of section 49 subsection 6. A registered person who is claiming the refund of any balance in electronic cash ledger in the accordance with the provision of section 49 subsection 6. He may claim such refund through the return which is furnished for the relevant tax period under section 39 in form GST, GSTR or form GSTR 4, GSTR 3, GSTR 4 or GSTR 7 as the case may be. Is that if there is any registered person and he wants to make the claim of any balance which is outstanding in electronic cash ledger, then he can claim the refund. Then he can claim the refund of such amount or of such a refund through the return. Means he will make the claim of such a refund. He can make the claim of such a refund through the return which is furnished by him for the relevant tax period under section 39. Inform GSTR 3, inform GSTR 4 or inform GSTR 7 as the case may be. Means by this form, by the GSTR returns, he can claim the amount of of refund of any balance in electronic cash list. Such a return which is furnished shall be deemed to be a refund claim which is filed under section 54. Such a return which is furnished shall be deemed. Such a return which is furnished shall be deemed to be a refund claim which is filed under section 54. Under section 54. Sorry, section 54. Such a return which is furnished shall be deemed to be the refund claim under section 54. Now we will discuss the filing of refund claim. How we will file the refund claim. First we have discussed application for refund claim. Now we will discuss filing of refund claim. Filing of refund claim. Number 1. Supply regarded as deemed export. Supply regarded as deemed exports. In the respect of supply regarded as deemed export, either recipient or supplier are allowed to file the refund application in the respect of supply which is made as deemed export. If there is any deemed export which is made either recipient or supplier. In the case when there is any deemed export, there is a deemed export, then the supplier or the recipient are allowed to file the refund application. In the case of deemed export, either recipient or supplier are allowed to file the refund application. The supplier can seek refund only in the case where the recipient does not avail the ITC on such supply and furnish an undertaking to the effect that the supplier may claim the refund. Is that in the case of deemed export, either recipient or supplier are allowed to file the application of refund. Any of the party can file the application refund. The supplier can seek only when means the supplier can file the refund application. The supplier can file the refund application only when, only in case, when, only in case when, only in case when the recipient does not avail the ITC. When the recipient does not avail the ITC on such supply. When the ITC is not availed by the recipient on such goods and the recipient an undertaking furnish an undertaking to the effect that the supplier can claim the refund. If Thus, if the recipient does not avail the ITC on such supply, if the recipient does not avail the ITC on such supply and he furnish a undertaking to the and he furnish the undertaking to the effect that the supplier can or the supplier may claim the refund. In this case, the supplier can file an application for the refund. The supplier he can file an application for the refund. So, this is the filing of refund in the case of deemed export. Means when there is a supply and it will be considered as deemed export. In this case, in this case, in this case, the recipient or the supplier, they can file the application for refund. Number two, supply to the SEZ unit or to SEZ developer. When there is the supply, when there is the supply to the special economic zone unit or to the special economic zone developer. When there is the supply of goods or there is the supply of service or both to the SEZ developer or to the SEZ units, in this case, what will the filing of application? Filing of application. In the respect of supplies to the SEZ unit and developer, the application for the refund shall be filed by in the respect of supply to SEZ unit when there is the supply when there is the supply to SEZ unit or there is the supply to SEZ developer. Then the application for refund shall be filed by the application for the refund shall be filed by the number one supplier of goods supplier of the goods after such goods have been admitted in full in the SEZ for authorized operations as endorsed by the specific officer of the zone. The application can be filed by the supplier of goods after such goods has been admitted in full in the SEZ for the authorized operation or endorsed by the specific officer of the zone. When such goods when such goods are supplied and such goods has been admitted in full in the SEZ zone for the authorized operation as endorsed by the specific officer of the zone, then such supplier can file such supplier can file the application for the refund. In the case of service, the supplier of service along with such evidence regarding the receipt of service from authorized operations as endorsed by the specific officer of SEJ. Instead, the supplier of service the refund can file the application for the refund in the case of supply of service. In the case of supply of service, for the purpose of this, there is the need of evidence. There is the need of evidence regarding the receipt of service. There is the there is the need of a evidence regarding receipt of service for authorized operation for the authorized operation as endorsed by the specified officer of SEZ. Specified officer of SEZ regarding the specified endorsed by the specified officer of SEZ. So, by on the basis of such evidence, the supplier can file the application for the refund. On the basis of such, on the basis of such evidence, on the basis of such evidence, the supplier can file. He can file the refund application. He can file the refund application. So, in the case of goods, when such goods have been admitted in full in SEZ, when such goods has have been admitted in the SEZ by the authorized operation as endorsed by the specific officer of the zone, he can file the application for the refund. And in the case of services, when the evidence is received, when the evidence in the respect of receipt of service for authorized operation has been received from the specific officer of SEJ, then the application for the refund of services for the refund of tax can be filed by the supplier of service. So this is the provision of filing of refund in the case of supply to SEZ unit or supply to SEZ developer. Third point, supply by the casual taxpayer person. Supplies by the casual taxpayer person, non-resident taxable person. Supply by the casual taxpayer person and non-resident taxable person. The amount of advance tax which is deposited by the casual taxpayer person or non-resident taxable person under section 27 subsection 2 shall be refunded only when such person has, in the respect of entire period for which the certificate of registration granted to him, had remitted in force, furnished all the returns required under section 39. Supply by the casual taxpayer person or supply by the non-resident taxable person. In the case of casual taxpayer person and in the case of normal taxpayer person, n- n- non-resident taxable person, where they are applied for the registration under GST. Before the registration, to they are required to deposit advance tax. The advance tax is required to be deposited by the casual taxpayer person or a non-resident taxable person under section 27 subsection 2. Such amount of advance tax which is deposited by them shall be refunded. It shall be refundable only when it shall be refundable only when such person has, in the respect of entire period, such person has, in the respect of entire period for which the certificate of registration granted to him. Only when it will be refundable only when such person has, in the respect of entire period, for which the certificate of registration granted to him. for which the certificate of registration granted for him has remained in force, furnished all the form, furnished all the return which is required under section 39. Under section 39 is that the amount of advance tax which is deposited by the casual taxpayer person or by the non-resident taxable person under section 27A, under section 27(2), sorry, 27(2) shall be refundable. It shall be refundable only when the person has, in the respect of the entire period, in the respect of the entire period for which the registration of certificate has been granted to him, has had remained in force and furnished all his return which is required under section 39. If any of the return if any of the return for such particular period is not filed by the casual taxpayer person or non-resident taxable person, then he shall not be eligible for filing the application for refund. For filing the application for the refund claim, such person is required to file or furnish all the returns which are related to such a period, which are required under section 39. Further, refund of any amount after adjusting the tax which is payable by the applicant out of advance tax deposited by him under section 27 at the time of registration shall be claimed in the last return required to be furnished by him. Is that the amount of the refund? The refund amount shall be the net amount. Is that it will be advance tax, the amount of advance tax which is deposited by him under section 27 at the time of registration, less the amount which is required to be payable by such applicant, less the amount of tax which is payable by the applicant out of such a supply. Then the balance amount which is required to be refunded shall be claimed by the such taxpayer in the last return which is required to be furnished by him. It can be claimed by the person in the last return, in the last return which is required to be furnished by him, which is required to be furnished by him. So the filing so the application for refund filing can be made by the casual taxpayer person or by the non-resident taxable person in the respect of advance deposit by him at the time of registration. Only after filing all the relevant returns under section 39, and the amount of such deposit, the balance amount of such deposit can be claimed in the last return, which is required to be furnished by him, in the last return which is required to be furnished by him. Now we will discuss the time limit within which refund claim can be filed. Now we will discuss the time limit within which the refund claim can be filed. Means there will be the time limit. In such time limit, the taxpayer can file the refund claim. The taxpayer can file the refund claim. Time limit within which the refund claim can be filed. Any person claiming refund of any tax interest, if any person who is claiming the refund of any tax interest or any which is paid on such a tax or any other amount which is payable or which is paid by him may make an application before the expiry of 2 years from the relevant date in the prescribed form and manner. Is that when there is any person who wants to take the claim of refund of any amount, any person claiming refund of tax any tax interest, if any, which is paid on such a tax or any other amount which is paid by him, then he may make an application. Then such a registered person may make an application before the expiry of 2 years. He will he will may he will make an application before the expiry of 2 years from the relevant date in the prescribed form and manner. In the prescribed form and manner. 2 years from relevant date, 2 years from the relevant date. Date up to which refund can be filed means he can file the application for the refund. He can file the application or he can claim the refund of any tax, any interest, or any amount which is paid by him, which is paid by him by the refund application. And such a refund application is required to be filed before the expiry of 2 years from the relevant date, and such application is required to be filed in prescribed form and in prescribed manner. So there is a time limitation of 2 years from the date of relevant date. Means if the person wants to make an application, then he will file the application before the expiry of 2 years from the relevant date. What is the relevant date? What is the relevant date? The meaning of relevant date. The meaning of relevant date. Explanation 2 to section 54. Explanation 2, section 54. Relevant date means relevant date has been defined in explanation 2 to section 54. The definition or the definition of the relevant date is explained in section 54 explanation 2. Accordingly, according to section 54, the relevant date means, accordingly, the relevant date means number 1, serial number, cases and relevant date. Cases. Number 1. In the case of goods which are exported out of India. When the goods are exported out of India, where a refund of tax paid where a refund of tax paid is available in the respect of goods themselves, or as the case may be, the input and input services used in such goods and in the case of goods which are exported out of India, when the goods are exported out of India, out of India, where a refund of the tax where a refund of tax paid, is paid, is available, where a refund of tax paid is available in the respect of goods themselves, or as the case may be, the input or the input services used in such case, and number 1, goods are exported by the sea or air. When the goods are exported by the sea or air, then the date on which the ship or the aircraft, the goods are exported by the sea or air, then the relevant date will be the date on which the ship or the aircraft in which such goods are loaded leaves India. When such aircraft or such ship in which such goods are loaded leaves India, when it leaves India, goods are exported by sea and air. then the relevant date is the date on which the ship or aircraft in India, in aircraft in which the goods are loaded leaves India. When it leaves India, then it will be considered the relevant date. In the case of goods exported by the sea or air. Number two, when the goods are exported by land, when the goods are exported by the land. In this case, the relevant date will be, in this case, the relevant date will be date on which such goods pass the frontier. Relevant date means the date on which such goods pass the frontier. When such goods pass the frontier, it will that then such a date on which such goods pass the frontier, then the date of such goods pass the frontier will be considered the relevant. Number three, goods are exported by the post. When the goods are exported by the post, in this case, the relevant date will be, in this case, the relevant date will be date of dispatch of goods by the post office. Date of dispatch of goods by the post office concerned to a place outside India. Concerned to a place outside India. Is that the relevant date will be the date on which when the goods when the goods are dispatched by the post office. When the goods are dispatched by the post office. Is that in the case of export of goods out of India, in the case of export of goods outside India, the relevant date will be number one, when the goods are exported by the sea and air. When the goods are exported by the sea and air, by the sea or air. In this case, the date on which, in this case, the date on which the ship or the ship or the aircraft is the ship or the aircraft in which such goods are loaded leaves India. Such goods are loaded leaves India when such aircraft or ship leaves the India. For the example, Mr. Ram he wants export a machine by the air by the aircraft. Then the date on which such aircraft in which the machine is loaded by Mr. Ram. For the example, the machine is loaded by Mr. Ram as on 1st January. And such and such aircraft is such aircraft leaves India on 2nd January. On 2nd January. Then the relevant date will be 2nd January. Then the relevant date will be the 2nd January. The relevant date will be the 2nd January. And within such relevant date, within such a relevant date means within the 2 years from the 2nd Jan, Mr. Ram can make the claim for refund, or he can file the application for the refund from 2nd Jan. Number two, goods are exported by the land. When the goods are exported by the land. For the example, Mr. Ram export any machine by the way of land, means by a vehicle. By a vehicle. Then in this case, the relevant date will be the date when when such goods cross the frontier. When such goods or such vehicle in which such machine is loaded will cross the frontier, then it will be considered as relevant date. Then it will be considered as relevant date. Number three, goods are exported by the post. When the goods are exported, ex, goods are exported by the post. For the example, Mr. Ram wants to send a machine to Mr. John of UK, and such machine is exported by the post. So in this case, the relevant date will be the date of dispatch of such goods by the post department concerned to the place outside India. So the relevant date will be the date of goods. So in this case, the relevant date will be the date of dispatch of goods post office by the post office concerned to a place outside India. So from such date, Mr. Ram can miss from such date from the 2 year from such a relevant date, Mr. Ram can file the application for refund. From 2 year from such a relevant date, from such date of dispatch of goods by the post officer, by the post office, he can make an application for the refund. Second case. Second case. Number second. In case of service, in case of service, in first case we have discussed in case of goods. Now in case of service. In case of services exported out of India, where the services exported out of India, where a refund of tax which is paid is available in the respect of service themselves, or as the case may be, the input or the input services used in such service is that the refund in the respect of the refund of tax which is paid which is paid in the respect of such service themselves, or as the case may be, the input and the input services which are used in such service. So the refund of these taxes can be made by the exporter within the period of two relevant within the 2 year from the relevant date. Then what will be the relevant date? Now we will discuss what will be the relevant date in the case of supply of service. Number point one. Point one. The supply of service had been completed prior to the receipt of such payment. Number one, the supply of service had been completed prior to the receipt of such payment. Prior to the receipt of such payment, the supply of service, the supply of service has been completed prior to the receipt of such payment. In this case, the relevant date will be the date of receipt of such payment in convertible foreign exchange or in Indian rupees wherever permitted by the Reserve Bank of India. When there is the supply of service and the supply of service had been completed prior to the receipt of payment. The payment is received after the completion of service. In this case, the relevant date is the date. In this case, the relevant date is the date of receipt of payment. The receipt of payment when such payment is received either in convertible foreign exchange or in Indian rupees, wherever permitted by the Reserve Bank of India. Wherever permitted by the Reserve Bank of India. So, from the date when such payment is received, from the 2 years from the date of such payment received, the exporter can claim the refund. For the example, Mr. Ram, he is the supplier of service. He has exported a service to Mr. John in UK. The service has been completed. The service has been completed and the payment is received after the completion of service. The payment is received by Mr. Ram from Mr. John after the completion of service. For the example, such payment is received as on 31st March. It is received on 31st March. It is received in convertible foreign exchange. It is received in convertible foreign exchange. Then 2 years from 31st March. Then 2 years from the 31st March, Mr. Ram can make the application for the refund of the tax which is paid in the case of exported of such services, or the tax which is paid by him on the input or the input services which are used by him for the such service. So 2 years from 31st December, 31st March. As on 31st March, 2 years from the 31st March. Number 2, payment for the service had been received in advance prior to the date of issue of invoice. When the payment is received in the respect of exported of service, the payment is received in advance, but the invoice has not been issued. Instead, the payment for the service has been received in advance prior to the date of issue of invoice. In this case, the date of issue of invoice, the date when the invoice will be issued, will be considered the relevant date. For the example, Mr. X, he is the exporter of services. Mr. Mr. Ram, he is the exporter of services. He is the exporter of services. He supply some service to Mr. John of UK. To Mr. John of UK. Mr. John has make the payment. He has made the payment of such supply in advance. Payment is made in advance prior to the date of invoice. Means the invoice is not issued till such a date. The payment is made as on 1st January. For the example, the payment is received as on 1st January. The payment is made by Mr. John on 1st January. But the invoice is issued by Mr. Ram. But the invoice is issued by Mr. Ram as on 31st January. It is issued on 31st January. So in this case, the relevant will be the date of issue of invoice. The relevant date will be the date when the invoice is issued. Is that the relevant date will be 31st January. 31st January will be the relevant date, and 2 years will be considered from such a 31st January. 2 years will be considered from the relevant date. 2 years will be considered from 31st January. Point number 3. In case of supply of goods regarded as deemed export. In case of supply, in the case of supply of goods regarded as deemed export, where a refund of tax paid is available in the respect of goods. In the case of supply of goods regarded to the deemed export, when it is considered as deemed export, where a refund of tax, where the refund of tax is paid, where the refund of tax paid is available in the respect of goods. So in this case, the relevant date will be the date on which return return relating to the such deemed export is furnished. The relevant date will be the date on which return relating to such deemed export is furnished. From such relevant date means 2 years from such relevant date, the taxpayer can make an application for the refund claim. 2 years from the date on which the return relating to such deemed export is furnished. For the example, Mr. Ram supplied the goods which will be considered or treated as or regarded as deemed export, where a refund of tax is available, where a refund of the tax is available on such goods. In this case, the relevant date will be the date when the return relating to such export. For the example, the return is furnished the return is furnished on 10th day of January. The return is furnished 10th day of January. So such a 10th day of January will be considered the date will be considered the relevant date. And from from this 10th day of January, 2 year will be count for the purpose of making the application for refund. Means Ram can make the application for refund within 2 years from the date of such from the 10th day of from the 10th day of January. Next point number 4, where tax become refundable as a consequence of judgment, decree, order, or direction of the appellant tribunal, any court. When the tax become refundable, when the tax become refundable on the basis of consequences of judgment, decree, order, or direction of appellant tribunal, appellant authority, and court. In this case, the relevant date will be the date of communication of such judgment, decree, order, or direction. The date of communication of such judgment. The date of communication of such judgment, decree, order, and direction will be considered the relevant date, and from the 2 year from such date, 2 year from such date, the taxpayer can make an application for the refund. Number 5. In case of refund of unutilized ITC on account of inverted duty structure, when when there is the refund of unutilized input tax credit, means the person wants to make an application for the refund of unutilized ITC. In this case, the relevant due date. In this case, the relevant due date for furnishing of return under section due date for furnishing the return under section 39 for the period in which such claim for refund arises is that if there is any person who wants if any taxpayer who wants to make an application for the refund of unutilized ITC on the account of invented duty structure. In this case, the relevant date will be the date. In this case, the relevant date will be the date, will be the due date, will be the due date for furnishing the return under section 39 for the period in which such claim for refund arise. Means due date of furnishing of return under section 39 for the period in which such a claim for refund arises. From such a relevant date, 2 years from such a relevant date, the taxpayer can make an application for refund claim. Point number 6. In case where tax is paid provisionally under this act or rule made there under, when the amount of the tax which is paid by the taxpayer provisionally, and after the final assessment it was found that the amount of final the tax under the final assessment less than the is less than the tax which is paid by the taxpayer as provisional assessment, and the balance tax is required to be refunded. So in this case, the relevant date will be for making the application for refund of such tax, the date of adjustment of tax after the final assessment thereof. Is that the relevant date will be the date of adjustment of tax after the final assessment. For example, Mr. Ram, he is the taxpayer. He is the taxpayer. In the case of GST, there is a simple provision of self-assessment. But Mr. Ram supplied such goods in the respect of which he in the respect of which he is not eligible for making the self-assessment. Means he has the doubt about whether it is interstate supply or intrastate supply, or or he has the doubt about he has the doubt about the rate of the tax. What will be the rate of tax on such goods or on such services or both, and what will be the value of what will be the value of such goods, service, or both, or what will be the value of tax. So in this case he choose the route of provisional assessment. In the provisional assessment he make an application to the proper officer, and he explain his intention to adopt the provisional assessment. On the basis of this, Mr. Ram pay the amount of estimated tax on the basis of provisional assessment. After the final assessment, it was found that the amount of final tax is less than the amount which is deposited by him under the provisional assessment. Under the provisional assessment. So in this case, there is the point of refund. So Mr. Ram can make the application. He can file an application for the refund within 2 years from the date of adjustment of tax after the final assessment. Means he can make the application for the refund within the period of 2 days from the date when the final when the adjustment of the tax is made. Means when the tax is adjusted final after the final after the final assessment. Means after the final assessment the tax will be adjusted according to the final liabilities. Then the date on which such adjustment is made will be considered as relevant date, and he can file the application for refund within the 2 years from such relevant date. Case number 7. In the case of a person other than supplier. In the case of a person other than supplier, is that the is that the application for the refund is made by the recipient. When the application for the refund is made by the recipient. In this case, the date of receipt of goods or services or both by such person. When there is any application for the refund has been made by the recipient, when it is not made by the supplier. In this case, the relevant date will be the date. In this case, the relevant date will be the date on which the goods on which the goods, services or both are received by such person. For the example, Mr. Ram, he is the supplier of goods. He is the supplier of goods. He supplies some goods to Mr. Sham, who is the recipient of goods, who is the recipient of such goods. In the respect of such goods, there is the provision of refund claim. Means, if there is any supply of such goods, then any of them, supplier or recipient, any of them can claim the refund. In this case, in according to this situation, the refund claim is not made by the supplier. So the recipient want to make the claim of such a refund. In this case, he can file an application for the refund within the period of 2 years from the date of relevant date. In this situation, the relevant date will be the date on which he will receive the goods or receive the services or both from the RAM. He received the goods from the RAM on 1st January. So the 1st January will be the relevant date, and 2 years from the 1st January, 2 years from the 1st January, he can file or make an application for the refund claim. He can file the application for the refund claim. Case 8. Case 8. Any other cases. In any other case, date of payment of tax. In any other cases other than all these 7 cases. Any other case other than all these 7 cases. The application for the refund can be filed 2 years from the date of payment of tax. If there is any payment of tax as on 20 January, then 2 years from the 20 January. 2 years from the 20 January, the taxpayer can file the application for the refund. Application for the refund. So these are the some cases. These are the some cases, and these are the relevant date for relevant date, because as per the provision, the person can, because as per the provision, there is the limit for filing the application for refund. The limit is 2 years from the relevant date. 2 years from the relevant date. From the relevant. So before understanding it, before understanding the limit, it is very much important to understand the relevant date. So we have discussed the cases and the relevant date. So on the basis of this, the person can make the application for filing the refund within the 2 years from these relevant dates. From these relevant dates. Now we will discuss documentary evidence for filing the refund claim. What will be the relevant documents evidence for filing the refund claim? Is that what are the documents which are required to file the refund claim? Document evidence for filing the refund claim. Documents which are required for filing the refund claim are as follows. The applicant need not file elaborate document along with the refund claim. In the case of filing the refund claim, there is no need to file elaborate documents. For filing the refund claim, there is no need to file elaborate document along with the refund claim. A standardized and easy to understand document has been prescribed. There are some easy and standardized and easy to understand document has been prescribed. There are some documents are prescribed and all these documents are very standardized and easy to understand. Thus, for every for every claim, thus for every claim, the main document which is prescribed in a statement of relevant invoice, shipping bill, not the invoice themselves, pertaining to the claim. Thus, for making the any of the claim of refund, the main document which are prescribed in the statement of relevant invoice. Thus, for every claim, thus for the every claim, the main document prescribed in the statement of relevant invoice, shipping bills pertaining to the claim are required. Documentary evidence, documentary evidence required for filing refund claim has been provided under the provision of section 54 subsection 4 read with rule 89A. Documentary evidence for filing the refund application or for filing the refund claim has been provided under section 54 subsection 4 read with rule 89 subrule A. There are these rules or these provision contain the provision in the respect of documentary evidence which are required to be filed for filing the claim of refund. Section 54 subsection 4. Now we will discuss section 54 subsection 4 because it is contained the provision and it is contained the list of documents which are required to be submitted for claiming the refund. Section 54, subsection 4 stipulates that the application shall be accompanied by. Section 54, subsection 4 stipulates that the application shall be accompanied by, it shall be made by, it shall be accompanied by. Number 1. Such documentary evidence as may be prescribed, such a documentary evidence as may be prescribed to establish that a refund is due to the applicant. The documentary evidence which may prescribe means there is the need of a document which can explain it or which may be prescribed to establish that the refund is due to the applicant. The refund is due to the applicant. The evidence which can explain it or which can prescribe it that a refund is due to the applicant. This type of this type of document evidence is required. Number 2, such a documentary or other evidence, including the documents which are referred in section 33. Such documentary or other evidence as the applicant may furnish to establish that there is no unjust enrichment. Such document or other evidence as the applicant may furnish to establish that there is no unjust enrichment is that the amount of tax and interest, if any, which is paid on such tax, on such or any other amount which is paid in the relation to which such a refund is a claim was collected from or paid by him, and the incidence of such tax and interest had not been passed on to any other person, is that there is also need of a document or the evidence as the applicant may furnish, which can be furnished by the applicant, and which is established that or which is explained that there is no unjust enrichment. The concept of un, unjust enrichment will also be explained by us in our previous class. In our another class. So we will discuss the concept of not unjust enrichment. Unjust enrichment. We will discuss such concept, such point in the very detailed form. However, where the amount claimed as refund is less than 2 lakh, if the amount of the claim, if the amount of the refund which is claimed by the taxpayer is less than 2 lakh rupees, it shall not be mandatory for the applicant to furnish any documentary and evidence, but he may file a declaration based on the documentary or other evidence which is available with him, clarifying that there is no unjust enrichment, is that the incidence of such tax and interest has not been passed on the any other person, is that whether the amount of the refund, if the amount of the refund is less than rupees 2 lakh, the amount of the refund is less than rupees 2 lakh, then it is not necessary, for the applicant, to furnish any documentary or any other evidence, but he may file a declaration, on the basis of his documentary evidence that there is no unjust enrichment. If if there is no any unjust enrichment, then he will prepare a declaration, and he will file such a declaration only when the amount of refund is less than 2 lakh rupees. If the amount of refund is less than 2 lakh rupees, if it is more than 2 lakh rupees, if it is more than 2 lakh rupees, if it is more than 2 lakh rupees, then in this case the declaration as well as all other evidence is also required. Such declaration is required in all the cases. In the simple words, we can say that unjust enrichment means unjust enrichment means such amount of tax or interest has not been passed on any other person. For the example, for the example, we are claiming the refund of 1 lakh rupees. We are claiming the refund of rupees 1 lakh. So we will explain that such amount of tax and interest has not been passed to any other person. Means we have paid some tax to the government. Normally, when any of the amount of tax which is paid by us to the government, is it is collected from any other person, we can collect such tax from other person. But when such amount of tax or such amount of interest which is paid by him, which is paid by the taxpayer to the government, is not collected from anyone, is not transferred, such amount of tax or such amount of interest is not transferred to any other person. It is not transferred to any other person, means it is not recovered from any other person. It is till date it is only borne by us, then it is to be known as unjust enrichment. If such amount is not recovered from anyone, then we can take the claim or we can file the refund, otherwise we can't do so. For the example, Mr. Ram, he is claiming the refund of 1 lakh. He is claiming the refund of 1 lakh. This is the amount of tax which is paid by him at the time of export. At the time of export, such amount is claimed. Such amount is paid. to the government. But such amount of tax which is paid to the government of rupees 1 lakh is not transferred by Mr. Ram to the any other person to recover it. Means it is not charged from any other person. Means the burden of such tax is not transferred by Mr. Ram to any other person. If he can declare it or he can prove it, if there is a requirement, if it is declared it, then it will be considered as unjust enrichment. Unjust enrichment. So this is the concept of unjust enrichment. We will discuss such concept in our other class in the proper detailed form. In the proper detailed form. So if the amount of the refund claim is less than rupees 2 lakh, if the amount of refund claim is less than rupees 2 lakh, then it is not mandatory. It is not mandatory to furnish all the document, all the evidence. There is need to provide only a declaration and explain that there is no unjust enrichment. Explain that there is no unjust enrichment. Rule 89 sub rule 2. Now we will discuss rule 89 sub rule 2. It is also contain the provision in the respect of evidence. In the pursuant of said provisions, rule 89 sub rule 2 has provided that the application for filing of refund claim shall be accompanied by any of the following documentary evidence as applicable. In pursuance of the said provision, rule under Rule 89 sub rule 2 provided that the application for filing of refund claim shall be accompanied by any of the following documentary evidence as applicable. In Annexure 1 of Form GST RFD 01 for refund claim, to establish that to establish that a refund is due to the applicant. Means there is the need of a evidence which can explain or which can establish that such a refund is related to the such applicant. Means such a refund is due to the applicant. Then such type of evidence is required which can explain that such a refund is related to or such a refund is due to the applicant as per rule 89 sub rule 2. These are the cases in which refund in case where refund is on account of and documentary evidence to be submitted. Means now we will discuss the cases where the refund is on the account of and what will be the documentary evidence which are required to be submitted. Number 1, where the refund is on the account of where the refund on the account of judgment, decree, order, direction of appellant tribunal, appellant authority, and any court. Where the refund is on the account of any judgment, any degree, any order, any direction of the appellant authority, appellant tribunal, or any court. In this case, what are the documentary evidence which are required to be submitted? Copy of order which is passed by the proper officer, copy of the order which is passed by the proper officer or an appellant authority, passed by the copy of order which is passed by the proper officer or by any appellant authority or by appellant tribunal or court, resulting in such a refund or reference number of the payment of the amount which is specified in section 107 subsection 6 and section 1128 claimed as a refund. Means there is the need of the copy of order which is issued by the proper officer or by an appellant authority or by an appellant tribunal or by the court, resulting in such a refund or reference number of the payment of amount which is specified in section 107 subsection 6 and section 112 subsection 8 and which is claimed as refund. Number 2, when there is the export of service. When there is the export of service, then what evidence are required to be submitted? What evidence are required to be submitted? When there is the export of services, then the statement which is containing the number and the date of invoice. The statement which is showing or which is containing the number and the date of invoices and the relevant bank realization certificate and the relevant bank realization certificate or foreign inward remittance certificate. Foreign inward remittance certificate, as the case may be, is required to be submitted for filing the application of refund. For filing the application of refund, where the refund is on the account of export of goods. When the refund is on account of export of goods, then the then the documentary evidence which are required to be submitted, then the following documents are required to be submitted. A statement which is containing the number, a statement which is containing the number and date of shipping bill or bill of export, and the number and the date of relevant export invoice. Means a statement which is containing the number and the date of shipping bill in the case when there is the export of goods, then then there is a shipping bill or bill of entry, sorry, bill of export is maintained, is generated. So the number and the date of such shipping bill or bills of export and the number and the date of such export invoice is also be required. It is important to note that the realization of convertible foreign exchange and the Indian rupees wherever permitted by the Reserve Bank of India is one of the conditions for the export of service. It is also been noted that the realization of foreign currency or Indian rupees, which is permitted by the Reserve Bank of India, is also a condition for export of services. Where in the case of export of goods, whether in the case of export of goods, realization of consideration is not a precondition. In the case of export of goods, the realization of amount, whether it is in foreign currency, whether it is in foreign currency or in Indian currency, it is not a precondition. It is not a precondition. Consequently, documentary evidence in the form of statement. Consequently, documentary evidence in the form of statement, which is containing name, which is containing number and the date of relevant BRCs, which is containing bank reconciliation certificate and FIRC, foreign inward remittance certificate, are not required in the case of when there is the export of goods. In the case when there is the export of goods, then the documentary evidence which are relating to the bank reconciliation certificate, bank remittance certificate, bank realization certificate, and foreign inward remittance certificates are not required. However, in the case of non-realization of consideration in the form of FEMA, however, when there is the case of non-realization of consideration in the case of or in the term of FEMA, then the exporter may be called upon a repay the refund claimed by him. The exporter may be called. The exporter may be called upon a repay the refund which is claimed by him, which is claimed by him. So these all are the some evidence and the documents which are required to be submitted for making the claim when there is the export of goods. Number 4. Supply of goods is made to a SEZ unit or SEZ developers. When there is any supply of goods, and the supply of goods is made by the person to the SEZ unit or to the SEZ developer. In this case, the documentary evidence which is required to be submitted is a statement which is containing the number, the statement which is containing the number and the date of invoice, which is containing the number and the date of invoice as provided in Rule 46, along with the evidence regarding goods which are admitted in full for authorized operation. When there is any supply of the goods which is made by the registered person to a SEZ developer and to a SEZ unit. In this case, the documentary evidence which are required, mm, statement which is containing the statement which is containing the number and date of invoice as in provided in Rule 46, along with the evidence regarding the goods which are admitted in full for the authorized operation. Statement which is containing the number and the date of invoice as endorsed by the specific officer of CGST, effect of CGST. Next case, supply of service which is made by the SEZ unit or to a developer. When there is any supply of services, there is any supply of services which is made by the taxpayer or by the registered person to the SEZ unit or to the SEZ developer. When there is the supply of service which is made by the taxable person or the registered person to the SEZ unit or to the SEZ developer. In this case, the document which are used as a evidence for claiming the refund is a statement containing the name and the date of invoice. A statement which is containing the name which is containing the number, sorry, it is not a name, it is number, which is containing the number and the date of invoice. The evidence regarding receipt of service. First, the statement which is showing the number and the invoice date, and next the evidence regarding the receipt of service from the authorized operation as endorsed by the specific officer of SEZ. In the case of service, there is also requirement of a receipt which explain that the the service is received, and such evidence or the such received is endorsed by the specific officer of SEZ. And the another document is the detail of payment along with the proof, the detail of payment along with the proof which is made by the recipient, which is made by the recipient to the supplier, means the detail of payment and the receipt of payment which is made by the payment which is made by the recipient to the supplier for authorized operation as defined in SEZ Act 2005. Next case, when there is the deemed export. When there is the deemed export. In the case of deemed export, what will be the relevant and the important documents which will be used as evidence for claiming the refund? In the case of deemed export, The statement which is showing the number and the date of invoice along with there is the need as the evidence. First, there is the requirement of a statement which is containing the number and the date of invoice along with an number one acknowledgement by the judicial tax officer of the advance authorization, acknowledgement by the judicial tax officer of the advance authorization holder or export promotion capital goods authorization holder, as the case may be, that the said deemed export supplies has been received by the said AA advance authorization and EPCG export promotion capital goods authorization holder or a copy of tax invoice which a copy of tax invoice under which such supply has been made by the supplier, which should be duly signed by the recipient. It should also be duly signed by the recipient that said deemed export supply has been received by him. It should also be signed by the recipient, which properly clarify that such deemed export has been received by the recipient. Next case, next point of related document undertaking by the recipient of deemed export undertaking by the recipient of the deemed export which is supplied that no ITC on such supply has been availed by him, which is explained that no amount of ITC or no amount of input tax credit on such a supply has been availed by him. Next document undertaking by the recipient by the recipient of deemed export which is supplied that he shall not claim the refund in the respect of such supply and the supplier may claim the refund or the supplier may claim the refund. Next point, refund of any unutilized ITC. Refund of any unutilized ITC accumulated on the account of inverted duty structure. Refund of any unutilized ITC. Any unutilized ITC accumulated on account of inverted duty structure. Inverted duty structure. A statement which is containing the number number and the date of invoice received and issued during the tax period. A statement which is containing the number and the date of the invoice which is received and issued during the period. In the case of refund of unutilized ITC, if there is a refund of unutilized ITC, then a statement which is containing the number and the date of the invoice which received and issued during the period. Refund on the account of finalization of provisional assessment. Refund on the account of finalization of provisional assessment. In this case, the evidence which are required to be submitted, reference number of final assessment order. There is need to provide reference number of final assessment order and a copy of said order. And the copy of said order means reference number of the final assessment order and the copy of such order. It can be used as a evidence. It can be used as a evidence for filing the refund. Tax which is wrongly collected and paid to the government. When there is a refund on the account of tax which is wrongly collected and paid to the government. In this case, the document or the evidence which is showing the detail of transaction which is showing the detail of transaction, the transaction which are considered as intra-state supply, but it is but consequently it was found that it is interstate supply, or the transaction is interstate supply, but after that it was found that it is interstate supply. Is there the statement which is showing the transaction that which is showing the transaction considered as intra-state supply, intra-state supply, but which is subsequently held as interstate supply when there is any refund on account of excess of tax, on account of excess of tax. Then statement which is showing the detail of amount, the statement which is showing the detail of amount of claim on account of excess payment of tax, statement which is showing the detail of the amount of claim on account of excess payment of tax. This statement can be used as the evidence for making the claim of refund. So these are the cases when the refund is required, and these are the documentary evidences which are required when you are claiming the refund. In these cases in these cases in different cases, different documents are required as evidence for claiming the refund. So these are the cases, and these are the evidence or the document which are required for claiming the refund in different cases. Further, a declaration need to be furnished to establish that further a declaration further a declaration further a declaration the declaration which explained that there is no unjust enrichment there is no unjust enrichment is also required. Declaration which is properly explained that in the case of such a refund, there is no unjust enrichment, and such a declaration is required when the amount of refund does not exceed 2 lakh rupees. When the amount of the refund which is claimed by the person is not more than 2 lakhs. However, where the amount of refund is more than 2 lakh rupees, however, where the amount of claim is more than rupees 2 lakh, a certificate in Annexure 2, a certificate in Annexure 2 of Form GST RFD 01 by the chartered accountant or by the cost accountant to the effect that there is no unjust enrichment in the case of such applicant. Instead, where the amount of the refund is more than rupees 2 lakh rupees, then a certificate in Annexure 2 of Form GST RFD 01 means refund form, a certificate of a certificate which should be signed or certified by the chartered accountant or by the cost accountant, which is explained that there is no unjust enrichment in the case of such applicant. In the case of such applicant, there is no such unjust unjust enrichment. So such a declaration is required to be made. Such a declaration is required to be made. Further, neither a declaration by the applicant nor a certificate by the chartered accountant or by the cost accountant is required to be furnished in the following cases. In the following cases, neither a declaration of unjust enrichment nor a certificate of unjust enrichment which is certified by the chartered accountant or the cost accountant is required. in the following cases. Means nothing is required, means nothing, declaration or certificate is not required in the following cases. Number one, the refund of tax paid on the export of goods, export of services, or both, or on input or input services which is used in making such export. Number one, when there is the refund of tax paid, then there is the refund of tax paid on the export of goods, on the export of services, or both, or on input or the input services which are used in making such export. Is that if there is any refund of tax, and the tax which is paid on export of goods, export of services, or both, export of goods, export of services, or both, on, or tax which is paid by the such exporter on inputs and the input services which are used in making such export, which are making in such export. So in such, for claiming such a type of refund, there is no need of declaration. There is no need of declaration of unjust enrichment. And number two, refund of unutilized ITC. Refund of unutilized ITC in the case of zero rated supply, which is made without the payment of tax. Refund of unutilized ITC in the case of zero rated supply, which is made without payment of tax or on account of inverted duty structure. When there is a refund of unutilized input tax credited in the case of zero rated supply, in the cases of zero rated supply without payment of any tax or on account of inverted duty structure. In this case, in this case, neither declaration nor certificate of CA or cost accountant is required. Neither declaration of unjust enrichment nor the certificate of chartered accountant or the cost accountant is required. Third point, third point, refund of tax paid on the supply which is not provided either wholly or partially, and for which invoice has not been issued, or where a refund voucher has been issued. Point number third is the refund of tax which is paid. The refund of tax which is paid on the on a supply. The refund of tax paid on a supply which is not provided either wholly or partly, and for which invoice has not been issued, means the tax is paid by the taxpayer. But in the respect of such a, but in the respect of such a, in the respect of such a transaction, in the respect of which tax paid, neither supply is made nor invoice has been issued, means the tax is paid in advance. And now the person wants the refund of such tax paid. Now the such taxpayer want to take the refund of such a tax which is paid in advance. So in this case, no need to issue. In this case, no need of declaration, no need of declaration, and there is no need of certificate of cost accountant and chart accountant. Fourth point, refund of tax in the pursuance of section 74. Refund of tax in the pursuance of section 74 is that the tax paid on the transaction treating as interstate supply, but in actual and subsequent it was found that it is an interstate supply, or vice versa, is that when the tax is paid as interstate supply, but it was found that it is intrastate supply, it is intrastate supply. So in this case there is the need of refund, need of refund of tax. So in the case of such type of refund, there is no need of declaration of unjust enrichment, and there is no need of certificate of cost account or chartered account. Next point, the tax or interest which is borne by such other class of applicant as the government may, on the recommendation of council, may specify. The government may, the tax or interest which is borne by any other class of applicant as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of council. So in these cases which are recommended by the government or by the council, no need to provide any declaration of unjust enrichment, or no need to provide a certificate of cost and chartered accountant. No need to provide the certificate of cost or chartered accountant. So so this is only a part, means there is some other provision which is relating to such concept, which will be discussed by us in part 2. Such topic is not completed, it is it is it is continue in part 2. So we will discuss all other relevant and important point which are relating to the refund in part 2. Thank you so much for watching this video. Okay, bye bye and have a nice day.